Shelyatambi. We have with us this evening Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, a Member of Parliament from the Batticaloa district who represents, apart from representing his constituents in Batticaloa, he is from the ITAK. Good evening and welcome, Shanakiyan, once again.
Good evening, Resh. Good to be back on face-to-face with you.
Right, Shanakiyan, what's happening in Parliament? What's happening with the government? The budget debate is going on. Let's start with that one. Are you happy with the budget?
Well, Niresh, first of all, thank you for having me on face-to-face. You see, when the budget for this year was presented to Parliament, the budget speech was something that we all anticipated to be much different because obviously the NPP's election manifesto had quite a large number of proposals that we found it hard to understand how they could possibly deliver on those promises that they had given on the manifesto.
So you think they overpromised?
For sure. I mean, they promised so much more than that they can deliver. So considering those election pledges, you know, when the budget was presented to Parliament, we anticipated to see, you know, a stark difference from the previous government's policies, almost a 180-degree turn on some matters. But, you know, it was just a continuation of the budget from Ranil Wickremesinghe's government. Why I say that is, Niresh, you know, this government got a mandate, or they were given a mandate solely because they appealed to the working class as opposed to the more corporates or the elites. However, in the budget, they have failed to address most of the concerns that the working class had. And one might say that, you know, how can you expect the government to deliver unrealistic things that now the opposition is questioning them on, but we are not questioning them on things that we proposed, you know, or the candidate that we supported proposed. These are election pledges that the NPP government's manifesto proposed, but they haven't been able to deliver on that. So now, when we question them, the public also, there is a sentiment saying, how can you expect the government to do these things? You know, you understand that there is IMF, you know, barrier to some, you know, some policies being implemented. But why did the government go ahead and promise these before the president's election? So was it just to, you know, come to power? So have the people been fooled once again? That's the big question. And going further, I'd say the budget is not only limited to fiscal policy. It's, you know, there are governance matters also in the budget. So one of the main promises given in the election manifesto was the abolishment of the executive presidency and bring in a new constitution. Not a hum in the budget about that. And later, when the president was present during the defense ministry's committee stage debate, I had the opportunity of speaking while the president was seated in the house. So I very clearly asked him, you know, what is your position on the constitution? So the president made a huge gallery speech for almost 45 minutes, but failed to mention a single thing about the constitution, even after being questioned, you see, in Parliament. So,
so do you feel that question of a new constitution has sort of fallen by the wayside?
Well, generally, Niresh, you know, a new constitution or the constitution making process needs to begin whilst the government is still popular. We already see 5 months into this government, they're hugely becoming unpopular. You know, the situation on the ground and the situation that you see on social media, it's completely different. Because the reason why I say that is because maybe the common man is not too concerned about a new constitution because they may have trouble comprehending the bigger picture. But now if you look at the fuel prices, the government, when it was in the opposition, accused Kanchana Wijayasekara of malpractice in procurement and said that if they came into power, that they'd be able to reduce the price by half of the price. But in the month of January, they've sold petrol and diesel at 10 rupees and 15 rupees higher than the rate that they could have sold it at, based on the fuel formula. So, people are beginning to now understand that this government has taken them for a ride. Now, even the electricity tariffs, the government said that they can't change it, but then the PUCSL came ahead and gave a new tariff rate. But I saw recently on the news that there'll be a tariff hike by June. So these were some of the pre-election pledges that the government gave that they have failed to deliver on, and even on the salary issue. See, I have never seen a government in one budget increase wages for 3 years ahead. So, the government staff wages increase is over a period of 3 years. So, even though on paper it says the minimum wage has gone from 15,000 to 40,000, the real amount of money, the increment that they may get is around 6,000 in some cases. That's the bottom tier of the government staff. So, the public are very unhappy, and with the New Year season that's coming up, the purchasing power has significantly reduced, and public are also upset, and it's also a responsibility of a responsible member of the opposition to also not be afraid to say facts as you see it. Just because the public sentiment is sympathetic, some aspects are sympathetic towards the government, some, because we shouldn't be afraid to say facts as they are. And one of those facts are the fact that they have given huge tax concessions, or continued to give the tax concessions that every single government in the past has given. So in 2024 it was to the tune of 966 billion. Now the country's requirement to pay Aswasuma for a year for all the Aswasuma beneficiaries only comes to around 230 billion. So it's almost 4 times the tax concessions given to a handful of companies. Well, obviously they were given in the past, but they haven't been changed. Now one may argue saying, oh, how can you do that? If you do that, businesses will collapse. But the government, the NPP election manifesto very specifically mentions these things. So they are the ones who are backtracking on their promises now, which is why you see we are not, I wouldn't be able to tell you that we are satisfied with the budget. One may argue saying, the president has allocated 5 billion for roads in the northern province, 1 billion for a bridge there, and 100 million for the library. If you take that in terms of the entire budget, it's a small fraction of allocations. And also, if you analyze the actuals versus forecast budgeted capital expenditure, on average, Sri Lanka has only completed 56% of budgeted capital expenditure spending. So even though the president has allocated 6.1 billion specifically for the northern province, the chances are only 56% of that, taking historic evidence, will be completed. And in the past, there are so many other projects that have been done in the northern province, isolated projects, which weren't mentioned in the budget, which are much higher than this. Now, if the government was very serious about uplifting the lives of the people in the northern province, and if they were very serious about improving economic conditions for people in the northern province, they would have really looked at upgrading the Jaffna International Airport to a scale where larger aircrafts can come and fly in. Nothing about that. Whereas President's own hometown has gotten 100 million rupees just to do a feasibility study on the Thamuttegama railway station. Now, when President went to India, if the President had given the green light to restart the ferry service between Talemana and Rameswaram, I am quite convinced that even the Indian government would have funded for that project to happen. But that would have transformed the economy in the north and east. The land value would have gone up immensely. Going another step further, the previous government were in discussion to have land connectivity between Jaffna and or rather the north and southern Tamil Nadu. Now, if the land connectivity project had gone through, we would have opened the northern province to an economy of 100, around 100 million people there, and even if we had 1% of them coming into the north as tourists or etc., that would have transformed the economy of the northern province. But there's nothing on this budget that could actually uplift the economy of the northern people.
An interesting take indeed, because initially the perception was that there was a significant amount of money earmarked for the northern province.
Well, it's not the case. It's not the case. And also, the mandate that the people of the northern province gave the NPP this time, I think they have been cheated. See, the north has never voted for a party, a southern political party in these numbers. And I would have imagined that the president would have repaid, their trust in the government by actually putting forward real solutions, or being genuine about
Shanakiyan, do you believe that with the upcoming election, the local government election, that this budget will have an impact on the result of the election, especially in the north?
Well, Niresh, this is exactly why the government is in such a rush to hold local government elections. I saw the election commission also had said, the election commission had also given an article about the government asking for these elections to be held immediately. Now, that is a way of exerting pressure on independent commissions. The government should, the court has given order. A new bill has been passed. So the election can be held within 3 months. So it is up to the commission to decide when they want to have elections. The government must not say we want to have elections urgently. The reason why they want to have these elections in such a rush, now for an example, the budget the third reading is on the 21st of March, but the last date for nominations on the 20th of March. Now, as a member of parliament, I am restricted in my, I'll be restricted in the contributions or interventions that I can make in parliament over the next couple of weeks, because now I have to focus on the local government election nominations in Batiklu as well. So the reason why the government is so desperate to hold the election so fast is because they understand that there will be an impact on the local government election because of the budget. Because this is the first, test for the government since the parliament elections, and the government has failed in the first given opportunity to, continue to keep the trust of the public. So this is the reason. Now, otherwise, just think about it, the Tamil Sinhala New Year is around the corner. Rather, if the election dates are announced even in early May, the campaigning period would fall within the Tamil Sinhala New Year, during the Ramadan period, during the ordinary level examinations. Now, why? I mean, we are not saying to postpone the election by 3 to 4 months. We very specifically said hold it after Vesak. Second or third week of May, where everybody's, the calendar, parliamentarians' calendar is free. Public have, now if you look at if the elections are to happen around the Sinhala Tamil New Year, most government servants will also have to be on duty, because during election time, there's extra work to be done. So, whilst inconveniencing so many sections of people, if the government is so hell-bent on having these elections in a rush, that answers your question, I think.
But on the other hand, these are elections which have been long postponed. But what you're saying is just, have it a few weeks afterwards rather than immediately.
No, the reason why I say that is, Niresh, I have no problem of the elections being held if the government wants to hold it on the day of the Tamil Sinhala New Year's also, I have no problem. But my duties as a parliamentarian, I am unable to perform fully, because the nomination dates close. The nomination dates are 17th, 18th, 19th and 20th of March. And 20th, 18th, 19th, 18th, 17th, every day is a committee stage debate on the parliament, which is moved by the opposition. So as opposition MPs, we have a huge responsibility to play, huge role to play within Parliament during the committee stage debate of the budget. So I don't know if the government is using this as a tactic to, limit the number of opposition members, speaking in Parliament as well.
Well, once again,
we are of the position that the election should not be delayed for any reason, but this is a different reason. I mean, and
it's a practical reason.
It's a practical reason.
Not a political
Not
one.
a political one.
Right.
Yes.
Because in the past, of course, many governments delayed this election time and again.
Agreed.
And it's been delayed for years, basically, for political reasons. But you're talking about a practical reason.
Correct.
Well, hopefully the Election Commission is watching the members, and maybe they'll take your views into consideration.
We've already gone and told them as opposition, all parties in the opposition went together to the Election Commission to raise these concerns. But it is very clear that they are under immense pressure from the government.
Interesting indeed. Now, let's look at some of the other issues. The PTA, the Prevention of Terrorism Act, it's been a thorn in the side of Sri Lankan society for decades, since 1979, when it was meant to be a temporary act, but it's been going on for nearly 50 years. Again, this was a campaign promise by the NPP to abolish it, but we don't see any proper moves towards that yet. Maybe they will abolish it, but at the moment it's very much there and it is in use as well. What's your view on this?
Naresh, the Prevention of Terrorism Act, our party has advocated for this to be abolished for, decades now. But another party that opposed this from its inception was the JVP, which is, now it is
the main constituent
now
of the NPP.
Some people may believe that it's an NPP government, but it is a JVP Politburo that is controlling everything. I don't think even cabinet ministers are able to provide answers without verifying or without checking with the Politburo before they blurt it out. So in that sense, it's very ironic that now the president is using the PTA. Now the Prevention of Terrorism Act has been used 3 times. Once in Arugambe, once during November when the Mavirar Day events were going on for a Facebook related post, and now recently on this Ganemula Sanjeeva case also the Prevention of Terrorism Act has been used. So I don't know if you remember, Niresh, in 2023 we had a signature campaign. Honorable Sumandiran and I had a mobile signature campaign where there's a mobile truck that went from district to district to all 25 districts.
Absolutely, it was something that was island-wide. We saw this.
And we collected large number of signatures to exert pressure on the government to repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Now, interestingly, in every district, the JVP members were key members who participated in the campaign. They even helped us mobilize people against to collect signatures, and their view was that the Prevention of Terrorism Act must be abolished. And I was told that there were some certain discussions to discuss a possible alternative, and they refused to even take part in those discussions, saying no way, we will not even consider an alternative to this. But now President in his speech at the Defence Ministry's consultative budget, when I raised that as well, now that is one of the things that he responded to. So he was listening to my comments about the questions about the constitution as well. President said that the Prevention of Terrorism Act will be repealed and it will be replaced. And Minister Harshana Nanayakkara also confirmed that that is happening. But very interestingly, when Honorable Vijitha Herath was in Geneva, he failed to address a lot of the accountability issues. Now, PTA is just one. You see, there are so many cases that where the justice have been denied in this country, and these date back to the 70s, 80s, 90s. But there's a list of emblematic cases that were selected, saying, obviously the government, this is during the 2015 government that these cases were selected as emblematic cases, because it's hard to pursue justice for 1000 cases at one time. But symbolically, let's start with some of these ones. Now, even on these issues, we see no progress. And interestingly, the Attorney General's department had discharged certain individuals from the Lasantha Wickramatunge case, and now later we learned that even though the Attorney General's department has discharged them, or said that they are not involved, I was told that the president has given orders to put them on hold, right? Suspend the notice of the Attorney General's department. So
the AG's department did inform court that they were the letter was being suspended.
Correct. So my point being, so there is serious concern now. Attorney General Department, my view, should not be, nobody should interfere with the Attorney General's Department. But in the past, historically, we've seen that has not been the case, which is why another election promised by the president was the Public Prosecutor's Office for setting it up. Now, Minister Nanayakkara has given a press briefing about that getting cabinet approval, but Minister Vijitha Herath has not mentioned that in Geneva. Now, on the accountability side, that is a serious, if they were actually contemplating on bringing it very seriously, and if I was the foreign minister, that would have been the first thing that I would have said. So,
what's your take on the government's stance this time in Geneva?
Well, it's a new government, so obviously they have the time factor on their side, but there is no mention about any domestic or international mechanism other than the existing Office of Reparations, Office of Missing People, and then they are discussing a TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So, the victim community has rejected these mechanisms. So why is the government again trying to impose upon people a mechanism that they have rejected? So it's going to be a failure again. So very disappointing, because especially with the Northern Tamils giving such a resounding mandate, I would have believed that they would have done justice by the people, because in the north, during the presidential election, I will tell you something. In Batiklo, one of our own party's key members in one of our divisional committees, on the night of the election, votes being counted, bumped into me at one of the counting centers, and he was very upbeat. So I asked him why he was so upbeat. I said, the candidate that we supported is not doing too well in the south. I mean, obviously Batiklo Sajit won. I said, why so upbeat? And he said, no, I didn't tell you, but this presidential election I worked for the NPP. I said, why? And he said something very interesting. He said, I feel that it's only Androkumara Disanayaka who would go against the establishment and fight it. And he said people like Pillayan have been enjoying impunity. I don't feel that any other government will prosecute them, which is why, he was from an area which was very severely affected by Pillayan's atrocities in the late 2000s. So, see, that is the mindset that people had. So, nobody voted for JVP's policies, or these ministers who are now parading around as I would call them clowns. In fact, some of these clowns, nobody voted for them. People voted for AKD and his the trust that they had on him. And the speech of the foreign minister in Geneva was a clear betrayal of that trust on the accountability side.
Interesting take indeed. We are going to cross over for a short commercial break right now. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, Member of Parliament from the Batiklo district.
Every day, millions face the impossible. What happens when clean water feels out of reach? When an entire village is left helpless? When it seemed like no one is listening, Govt saw the need. Govt took action and a community fought back. A water purification system for a village that once had none. Govt for the people, by the people.
Listen, my
Complete my lusts.
My dear friends, here we are, all in our true colors.
Prefect. Coming soon on TV1.
2025 ICC Champions Trophy ක්‍රිකට් තරගාවලියේ අවසන් මහා තරගය ඉන්දියාව සහ නවසීලන්තය අතර ඉරිදා සවස 2:30ට TV1 ඔස්සේ සජීවීව www.sirasatv.lk වෙබ් අඩවිය ඔස්සේද නැරඹිය හැක.
Welcome back. We are with Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, Member of Parliament for the Batiklo district. Shanakiyan, let's talk about foreign policy, and particularly with India, which is looming large in this part of the world. What's your take now after 4 or 5 months of this government? How are our relations with India?
Well, Niresh, it's too early to say, and obviously President Andra Kumara Dissanayake visited China and India both, and we are told that there may be a visit from the Prime Minister of India in the future. With all those things, that has happened, I think it's very important that the government understands that, in this region, being so close to India, India is not a country that you can't not factor into your foreign policy, whichever policy it may be. I mean, clearly, JVP's political ideology is much closer to the Chinese, the ruling, whoever's ruling China right now. JVPs, I mean, the NPP doesn't seem anywhere near that. There's so much confusion amongst them. But with the things to come, now I'll give you one example. This entire Adani power and energy project, it was, NPP said that first they said they'll cancel it. Then they said, no, we are not going to cancel it. We are going to renegotiate it. Now, ultimately, Adanis have pulled out. And there were, environmental concerns, issues on transparency of the tender procedure. We raise these concerns as well. But, the Adanis pulling out, I don't see it as a good thing for the energy future, and also for diplomatic relations, and also for the economy as well. It was a $1 billion investment. And we must be very sensitive to the fact that we still owe India nearly $4.5 billion. It is not part of any of the IMF negotiations. That's a bilateral loan that is still pending. So India always has the opportunity to ask for that money back, and I don't see this government having a plan to pay it. But at the same time, we also see a lot of Chinese visits to the country as well. Very recently, I think the Chinese ethnic minister was in Sri Lanka to discuss reconciliation. It's very I don't want to, about ethnic relations and about social integration or national integration, about minorities. It's them talking about is quite funny. But I think we will have to wait and see. So far, President has tried to, he's visited China and India. He's trying to keep Sri Lanka okay with, on good terms with all the countries. But I think we'll have to wait and see on what more will happen now. There's issues about Chinese vessels coming into Sri Lanka for data collection and all that. There was a moratorium issued on that up until January 2025. I don't know if that has been extended or if now Chinese vessels are allowed to come in. So we'll have to wait and see. It's a little too early to be very specific about that.
On the renewable energy front, you have been somewhat vocal on this. We have, there was a policy of increasing the amount of renewable energy in the country. Various targets were set. How do you see this proceeding?
Well, the country, I think the previous government had a plan to achieve 70% of our energy requirement through renewable energy by 2030. Now, this government, I heard, has not only have they now leave Adani aside. Adani was going to add 488 megawatts of wind power to the grid by 2030, I think. But there were a large number of other renewable energy projects, especially on wind. Now, all of them have been suspended. And we see the minister, the engineer has said there will be a drought and there will be shortage. So, where are we heading? Is this government again heading towards emergency power purchase agreements with, for electricity powered by fossil fuel, like, through generators? Now, there are a lot of eye races in parliament as well. Cabinet ministers who are accused of financial misappropriation in the past, in their previous positions with the government, are now cabinet ministers. I've said this in the parliament. And, so is there a corruption angle that is beginning to, take place in this government as well is another question. But the corruption question aside, but even the solar panel projects, I think there were expressions of interest that were, people gave their EOIs in 2021. Even the previous government didn't process them. The power purchasing agreements weren't done. I know some companies where they have around 100 million USD sitting in bank accounts for over 3 years to go ahead with the project. So, so the energy sector's future is also, there's a huge question mark about the security of it, and this government's inability. It's very clear, Niresh, the way they're handling things now, the recent fuel shortage, obviously there was a issue with the suppliers. They had demanded something. The previous government didn't agree. They went to court. Court didn't give what they asked for. So this fuel shortage over Friday, Saturday and Sunday could have easily been avoided if the government had taken the decisions that they took on Tuesday last week. So they're playing catch up. That is just one example that I'm giving. But now I think there's a medical officer strike that is happening tomorrow. The GMOA. So, large number of, today.
I believe that was suspended pending discussions with the government.
What I'm saying is it has come to this. With such a new government, brand new government, and the medical officers also backed this government. The nurses union had a strike. Now the graduates are on the streets because they said that their jobs were promised. So, again, going back to the fundamental problem with this government is that the government lied to the people to come into power. So again, with the energy sector also, they, all these intellectuals that they claim to have no practical experience, which is one of the main reasons that we didn't decide to back the Antakumar Dissanayake government, because you can't just, I've always said, even on this show, I've said that the country must get together on a policy as opposed to an individual. But again, we've done the same mistake that we did in 2020. The public got behind Gotabaya. 2015 was somewhat different. 2010 it was people got behind Mahinda Rajapaksa. So, again we've done that same mistake. So we'll have to wait and see on the energy sector as well.
But again, do you see these policy issues manifesting themselves at the local government election with a loss in popularity for the NPP? And would that be significant?
Well, which is again, that is why they're in such a rush, because it takes some time for people to, now till the salaries are credited to their accounts. Now, if the budget is passed on the 21st of March, once a speaker signs, it will take another week. So that means, the first time the salaries will be paid will be on the 10th of April or so, and that is around the New Year season. So apart from that, now all these other promises that they made, that they have given, by June, July, August, public will see that that even though they're promised in the budget, that they'll not be delivered. So when that happens, there'll be if these elections happen a little later, I think there'll be a huge decline in the support base for the NPP, and even now I think there'll be a decline for the NPP. And also with this election system also, Niresh, it's a 60-40 system, where 60% are elected on the ward and 40% nominated. So even if NPP loses 1 or 2 wards in a local government body that has 10 or 12 wards, when you lose 2 wards, the opposition parties, all the opposing parties will have, a share of the nominated members. So NPP will have a big problem, because they will have to form an alliance to form the government. Now, who do they form an alliance with? They have to either form an alliance with I don't know how the southern opposition parties are going to contest, but as it stands, we see that the SLPP has called for nominations, we see the SJB has called for nominations, and we also see the UMP, doing some grassroots level work. So then they'll have to get together with one of these 3 to form the government. Otherwise, all these can get together and form the government in the local government. So either way, the local government elections are going to be tricky for the NPP, rather forming the governments in the local councils.
Interesting indeed. And of course, what's the situation in Batticaloa, which is the one district that the NPP did not win at the general election?
I'm glad that you remind the public and the government also that, it is not just the AKD who got a mandate. Even I got a mandate. The mandate was to represent the people. So the NPP's attitude and behavior in parliament is almost as if, that they are invincible, and, that we are all rejected politicians who are now in parliament. If you remember, we are part of the reason why today the NPP is in power, because we were the ones who rallied with the people to overthrow the Gotabaya Rajapaksa government. We questioned every single mistake that the Ranil Wickremesinghe government administration did. We created so much awareness about the corruption. What difference do you think the 3 MPs in, what impact would 3 MPs the NPP can make in the country? We also contributed to wanting a change. The change happened to be, the NPP happened to be lucky to it fell on their lap. So now some members of the government, especially the leader of the house, Bimal Ratnayaka, their behavior is completely unacceptable. They are so high-handed, shutting down the opposition, no democracy within parliament, parliamentary practices are not being followed. It's almost like a rigid, some military rigid military exercise going to parliament. So it's good that you gave the government a reminder that they're not the only one who got a mandate from the people. But very specifically about Batticaloa, it is all these allegations of corruption that we had against Pillayan on land grab, on sand mining, on all these things, they're still happening. Pillayan's not in power, but they're still happening.
Right.
And the district development committee has met once in December since president came into power, since parliament also, and most of the decisions taken there have not been implemented. And I don't think the District Development Committee chairman, who is also the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, has enough time to look at Batiklo, Trinco, and also focus on his ministry as Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. So all the issues are still in a limbo. No issues are resolved. And when we raise these issues, the government just shuts it down, saying, almost pretending as if these issues don't exist. So I think just like every other part of the country, when Go Home Gota protests were happening, somebody asked me also saying, why aren't the people of North and East not part of the Go Home Gota campaign as much as the people in the South? So I said, well, we never said come home Gota. We never brought him into power, so we don't have to say go home Gota. You guys brought him into power, so our people are saying we never said ask him to come. So similarly, this time it will only be Batiklo that can say that, saying we never wanted this NPP government to come to power. So, well, I hope it doesn't come to that, where this government also needs to be chased away. Hopefully there's still more time where they can fix their issues, and because I don't think the country can handle another crisis.
Interesting thoughts indeed, and I'm afraid we are out of time. My thanks to Mr. Shanakiyan Rasamanickam, Member of Parliament representing ITAK and the Batiklo district. Thank you very much, Shanakiyan, for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Niresh. Good to be on face to face.
And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a great evening.